I was an assistant at the cathedral at that time, and Father Rourke had just been ordained in 1958 and assigned to the cathedral. And one evening when I was listening to mariachi music, Lola Beltran and Miguel Aceves Mejia, he walked into my office and asked me, "What in heaven's name is that?" He used a different word, but we will say that. I told him this is what is called mariachi music. And what is that? So I started to explain to him as well as I could the idea of mariachi music. Well, eventually he started borrowing my albums little by little. Then he would take them up to his room and play them at full volume, so I could hear him at the other end of the rectory at the cathedral. That was my initial contact with Father Rourke, and from there sprang his idea of starting a group. He was an amazing man, many, many talents, not just music, but also in his attitude with people, his interest in culture, his interest in the youth. Then he was assigned back to Tucson to the old All Saints Church. And that's when he started the group that we know as Los Changuitos Feos.
It all really began when I was with the juvenile court. And Father Rourke was our chaplain, would come down and talk to the kids. He began playing the piano one day and was playing. I didn't know he had grown up with Peter Nero. So one thing led to another. He wanted to create this program, a CYO program, keep kids off the street, use music. Fine, so he did that. And then they went to Chicago one summer, and that was the kickoff. It seemed to be acceptable behavior, I guess. So when it came down to, can you help create an even bigger program? I said, well, yeah, I'll help, because I was with the Juvies. And I said, insisted that if we're going to do something, that we probably should create a program that would generate some dollars and allow graduates, those who graduate from high school, give them $1,000 to start the university, so they can work their way that way. And we were fairly successful. The leader of the group was David Reese, who went on to become a doctor.
One day, one of my friends that I worked with mentioned to me that they were having a group started, a musical group started at All Saints Church. And she says, "I know David plays trumpet. Do you think he'd be interested?" And I said, "Well, okay, we'll ask him." So we did, and he went for an interview, and that's how he first started to practice. And he went in right away to start practice with the boys that were there. Short after that, Mac entered the group and became one of Mariachi Los Changuitos Feos. But those were, that first year was, the first performing year of 1965 was very, very full of all kinds of activities.
Well, I was a little boy that was used to being on the west side of the Santa Cruz River. And didn't stray off any farther than that, except for maybe going downtown and playing pinball at the arcade. But then I got the opportunity to be with the changos, and took me to places like Chicago and New York, and so I thought that was kind of neat for myself to be doing stuff like that.
Absolutely.
A really neat experience to be able to travel around California and to the Grand Tetons, several other places.
Probably the most memorable is having lunch with Mayor Daley, Richard Daley in Chicago. And of course, we have pictures and so forth. And it wasn't until I got to college at the university that I realized who this man was. And I go, wait a minute, the boss? We had lunch with the man.
During, they have traveled quite extensively, really. During the times Father Rourke was there, And then during the subsequent years, I believe Father Richard Butler traveled the group. And then Joe Mendoza, you know, has taken them quite a few places, and now Betty Villegas, and I don't know if I've left out, you know, some,
I don't think so.
you know, director in between. But boy, in 40 years, the group has traveled quite a bit. I think one of my first experiences in traveling with the Changos was to Disneyland in California, and that's where our relation with the Walt Disney Company goes back into the mid to late 60s.
Disney
Right.
sent their private plane. It was called the Mickey Mouse, I remember that. And they picked us up in Salt Lake City and they flew us to Anaheim. So that really sticks out in my mind. And I remember coming back from Disneyland to going back to school. It was pretty depressing because it was such a high, you know, it was such a emotional high for me, and then coming back and it was like it was over.
We'd go to Disneyland, we'd play the parade, we'd play at the train station, and there was a stage, I forget which area of Disneyland it was at, and the Camperos were playing there at that time also. So that was kind of my first exposure to a mariachi group of that caliber. I went with the Changos to Mexico City, to Guadalajara. We performed on live television in Guadalajara. Saw some very good mariachis at El Abajeño, a restaurant there, and at the Plaza San Juan de Dios. Performed in Mexico City on, it was either Televicentro or Televisa, I forget what the name of the TV channel was at that time. Performed with Miguel Martinez of Mariachi Vargas trumpet fame, and Tomás Méndez, the composer of Currucucú, Paloma, and it was pretty interesting. We were young. We were gringos in Mexico City, and we were accepted. I think they were nice to us.
It seems to me you played a presidential inauguration also.
We did. God, how could I leave out the Tricky Dick? Nixon Agnew inaugural parade, snowing, cold, on a float. It was cold, and you know, we did pretty well.
We did a lot of traveling. The first gig that I did with the Changos was President Nixon's inaugural parade. So I remember, I'm not sure if it was during the inaugural parade that I got to ran into the Jackson 5 in the hallway in one of the hotel rooms where we were staying.
I was lucky enough to go to Washington, D.C. and play for the President Clinton's inauguration.
What was that like?
It was cold. It was very cold. It was a lot of fun. We went on, you know, like the subways, and it was awesome. It was an experience. We didn't get to see him, but it was an awesome experience.
We had when we went to Clinton, we went to pick up the vans. We tried to put the key in there, wouldn't go in there because it was frozen solid.
We traveled at such a young age, and it was such an experience. I mean, I was in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, involved with the Changos, and we'd travel, chartered bus, fly, airplane, cross country. I just remember the feeling of getting on that plane and going somewhere that, I mean, half the time I didn't even know where I was going. You know, Chicago, where's Chicago? I never thought about it. At that age, I just wanted to go. It was so neat.